Lots and lots of SI slabs coming back these last few weeks. Let's check out how it is affecting the CGC census. What's up, guys? I'm Brad. So, like I said, CGC has been sending back lots and lots of Sports Illustrated slabs over the past few weeks. Many collectors have been getting shipments back that they've been waiting for over a year. So, going back over a year, and then there was a delay of 2 to 3 months where CGC wasn't sending anything back at all earlier in 2023 because they were upgrading their slabs. But ever since they've gotten those new magazine slabs, the upgraded slabs in place, they've really kicked it into gear, and we've been seeing lots and lots of returns. So the question is, just how much are they returning? How is this affecting the census? I thought it'd be a good idea to just take a brief look at the census and where it stands, and maybe draw a couple deductions and estimates, some projections based on what we're seeing in this data. So what I have done and what we're going to look at is I have picked one very key issue from each decade, going from the 50s to the 2000s. And we're going to look at what kind of impact there has been on the census over the past 6 months, since they have started sending tons and tons of these slabs back. I mean, really, the majority of these slabs have been coming back in the last month or so. But let's take a look and see what kind of impact this has had. Okay, so first off, we're basically going to be comparing two dates. We're going to be looking at January 1st of 2023, so the very beginning of this year, and we're going to be comparing that to today. And as of the recording of this video, the most recent numbers that I'm looking at are the CGC Census numbers as of May 9th, 2023. So just a little bit over 5 months. And what we're going to see is there's been, like I said, a lot of movement by CGC. So as you can see here, at the very beginning of this year, CGC had graded 13,135 Sports Illustrated magazines. Jump ahead 5 months, and that number is now 16,051. That is a jump of nearly 3,000 graded slabs in just 5 months. And so that's an increase of 18%. Or actually, I take that back. What that means is 18% of all graded Sports Illustrated slabs that have ever been graded by CGC have all occurred in the last 5 months. That is a pretty big number. Now, I do want you to keep in mind, CGC has been grading Sports Illustrated going all the way back to 2009. That's 14 years. So 14 years of grading magazines, but 18% of all of these slabs have occurred in the last 5 months. And that number, it's probably going to continue going up, because as I look at collectors and I look at my own slabs and my own returns, it really feels like CGC, as of today, has gotten through most of the backlog up through like October of 2022. And that would indicate that they're still working through everything after that, November, December, and then on into 2023. So I do expect for these same kind of number jumps to continue to happen over the next few weeks, over the next couple months, as CGC gets fully caught up on that backlog. So that's something to keep in mind. But very interesting to see that, like I said, just over the last 5 months, they've graded almost 3,000 slabs. And actually, as I speak, as I record this video, looking at the data from just a few days behind, they probably now have hit 3,000 graded slabs. So like I said, let's look at one issue from each decade, one key issue, and let's just take a look at what kind of impact we've seen just over the last 5 months with this huge influx in extra graded magazines. So first off, Mickey Mantle, first cover, iconic. As of January 2023, there had been 38 newsstand copies graded. Now, one thing you got to recognize with the Mantle when you're looking at the census is there's actually two variants. There's two versions of it. There's what's called a centerfold variant, A bunch of these magazines were sent without centerfold, without several pages in the middle. I think like pages 37 through 41, something like that. And then there's the variant where the centerfold is included. So when you're looking at the census, you really want to add up both of those numbers because both of those are newsstands. To me, personally, I don't have any preference whatsoever between the variant with or without the centerfold. That doesn't make any difference to me at all as a collector and as far as displaying this magazine. Maybe it does to some others, but I think that you need to add those numbers up. So anyway, 38 in January, and as of today, it's jumped up by 13. It's at 51. So, once again, keep in mind, we're talking about 3,000 slabs, essentially. 3,000 magazines have been graded just in these past 6 months, or I'm sorry, just in these past 5 months. And 13 of those were what I would consider to be the most iconic issue or the most desirable issue by all Sports Illustrated collectors. Secondly, we have Muhammad Ali. This is his first Sports Illustrated cover, still known as Cassius Clay. And in January, there had been 22 graded newsstand copies of this issue. As of today, 24. So it's only increased by 2. So that really shows you the rarity of this one is majorly significant. And it kind of makes sense. When you think about Mantle, Mantle's first Sports Illustrated cover was in 56. He broke into the big leagues, I believe, in 51. So by the time that first cover came out, Mantle was already a 4-time All-Star. He'd already been a part of, I believe, 3 World Series championship teams with the Yankees. So he was already a major superstar. So it would make sense that his cover is something that more people might have held on to. Cassius Clay in 1963 had not even won his first heavyweight title. This cover here was really before he had exploded onto the scene. So this one's definitely tougher to find. Only 2 out of 3,000 issues that have been sent in. This one, which I would consider easily a top 5 cover of all time, only 2 extra newsstand copies have shown up. Next up, Pele. This one's even more difficult to find. There were only 6 newsstand graded copies as of January 1. Well, 3,000 graded slabs later, and that number is now at 7. Only one additional Pele newsstand has been sent in. So just crazy difficult issue to find. Moving into the 80s, we've got Michael Jordan's first cover here. And as of January 2023, there had been 91 newsstand copies graded, 3,000 graded slabs later, and that is now at 103. So an increase of 12. 12 of these have been graded in the past 5 months. And 90s, Tiger Woods, first cover. 64 copies had been graded at the beginning of this year. And as of today, we're now at 81. So 17 newsstand copies have been sent in for this one. And Tiger, he was kind of a young phenom that had a lot of hype. So this is definitely an issue that you would expect a lot more collectors would have held on to. And then, add in the fact that it's fairly modern, still less than 30 years old. And then the 2000s, we have LeBron James. 200 copies had been graded at the beginning of this year. This is one of the most frequently graded magazine covers. And this one, once again, LeBron, tons and tons of hype, was expected to be the next phenom and really panned out to be that. And so, this was definitely collectible. It's now just barely 20 years old. So you're going to see a lot of copies of this. So 200, and it has now jumped to 226. So 26 additional copies graded in the past 5 months. So what does all this data mean? You can make your own deduction off of that. You can come to your own conclusion. But one takeaway for me is that these key issues in newsstand are just still very, very difficult to find. And I think especially when we compare them to sports cards. And so, for me, coming from the sports card world, being familiar with how many of those there are available, and then transitioning to the magazine world, it's still kind of mind-blowing to me how much more scarce some of these newsstand issues are compared to sports cards. And so I thought it might be fun to actually look at a few more numbers and maybe just make some projections. All right. And so here's what I'm thinking. PSA began grading cards in 1991. So that means that we are basically on year 32, or PSA has been grading sports cards for 32 years. All right. And here I took some of those same athletes. I didn't use Tiger or Pele because they have or Ali. They don't really have traditional sports cards. I mean, you definitely can find sports cards of those guys, but they didn't have like the traditional rookie cards in the same sense as Mantle or MJ or LeBron. So in 32 years of grading from PSA, you can see there've been a little over 1,500 Mantle 52 tops cards graded. I know that's not technically his rookie, but it's his most popular. The 86 Fleer Jordan has been graded 22,600 times. And then LeBron, of course, has tons and tons of rookie cards. But just looking at the 03 Topps Chrome, one of the more popular common ones, been graded 8,357 times. So that's over the span of 32 years. I mean, of course, the LeBron is not quite 32 years because, 03, that's basically been 20 years. But that is in the history of PSA and the lifespan of those cards. That's what those pop counts are. Of course, you also got to consider there are some other popular grading companies such as SGC or Beckett, BGS. And so those numbers would definitely add to these, but we're only looking at PSA just to keep it simple. So what if we think about CGC, which, as I mentioned, has been grading Sports Illustrated since 09, 14 years. What if we tried to extrapolate that and project the pop reports of some of our most popular magazines into the same amount of time that PSA has been around? So 32 years, because obviously, we talk about how they're so rare and they're so scarce, but also we know people haven't been grading magazines as long as they've been grading sports cards. So is it really fair? Is it really legitimate to say that they're that much more rare whenever they just haven't been being graded as long? So I thought it'd be interesting to make some projections. So 18 years from now would be the year 2041. And in the year 2041, that will mean that CGC would have been grading magazines for 32 years. And once again, that's how long PSA has currently been grading sports cards. So what I decided to do was I decided to take a look at the current pop reports for the magazines that we just talked about. And I took a look at the pace of these past 5 months. So these past 5 months, like we saw, explosion of graded magazines. I don't really expect for the pace or the rate of Sports Illustrated magazines to be graded. I do not expect that same rate to continue as what has occurred over the past 5 months, or at least what has occurred really over the past 2 months. I don't expect that to continue because once again, they're really trying to get through a backlog. But let's just say that it did. I don't really see any way that it's ever going to be a higher rate that the CGC census, that these newsstands are going to be growing at a faster pace than what we're seeing right now. Just because once again, they're basically working their way through a huge stockpile. So let's just pretend that this crazy pace continued on for the next 18 years. What would the pop reports look like at that time when CGC would have been grading magazines for the same length of time as what PSA has currently been grading sports cards? And so then we could almost get a fair one-to-one comparison of, okay, this is what the PSA sports card pop reports look like after 32 years. And this is what the CGC Sports Illustrated graded magazine pop reports could potentially look like after 32 years. So let's take a look. Had some fun with this. So Mickey Mantle, as I mentioned earlier, there have now been 51 graded copies. If that continued to grow at the same pace that it has over the last 5 months, if it continued that for the next 18 years up until 2041, there'd be 519 graded copies of Mantle's first cover. Compare that to 1,538 copies of his key sports card. Muhammad Ali currently has 24 newsstand copies graded. 18 years later, if it kept up this same pace, there'd still be less than 100. Pele, 7. Same pace for 18 years, it'd be at 43. Michael Jordan, first cover, currently been graded 103 times. If it kept up that same pace, it'd be the same pace as what it's added over the past 5 months. It'd be at 535. And Tiger Woods, 81 current graded newsstand first covers. And in 2041, the projected total would be 693. Almost missed LeBron here. LeBron, 226 currently. And at the same pace, that would jump up to 1,162. Okay. So once again, what's the takeaway here? You come to your own conclusion. What my observation is I feel pretty confident that what many of us collectors have believed and what many of us collectors have stated about the scarcity and the rarity of these newsstand issues being significantly higher than sports cards, I think that some of this data really backs that up. Because once again, this is almost projecting and estimating like the highest case scenario. I just don't see any possible way that the rates that we're seeing over these past few months, while CGC has been grading like crazy to get through this enormous backlog, it's not going to always be like that. There's not going to be always that many magazines getting sent in to be graded. But even if it was, this is what the pop reports would look like. The pop reports would be to where the LeBron James first cover from 2002 that everyone and their mother collected would still have a significantly lower pop count than the Mickey Mantle 52 Topps card by almost 400 copies. That to me is very interesting. And I just thought that everyone would like to see some of this data, see what the census is looking like with all these new slabs getting graded, and also have some fun with some projections. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Appreciate likes, comments, subscribes. And until next time,